are a teacher-led, a founder-led initiative, and that's where we come from. So we are we started by primarily providing off-to-class to a lot of independent online ESL teachers, and then by around 2018, 2019, we became good enough to start providing our services to the online ESL schools, K-12 school districts, private schools, and the gamut of kind of English learning institutions. So that's kind of that journey that I'm going to be speaking about today, and I'm going to be relating it hopefully to some insights that you can use in your own ventures. Today's agenda, we're first going to talk a little bit about startup principles, the difference between finding product market fit versus scaling. Then we're going to talk about items that you need to bootstrap your online ESL school. And then we're going to talk about knowing when it's time to scale and what that means. So first off, is online a thing? It almost seems comical saying that in August 2021, but yes, online is a thing. Since the pandemic started, I've helped all of these public school districts in the United States, plus many, many, many more, get online. So yes, so online is no longer an option. It's a mandatory. That's where we are right now. But before I worked with all of these people, I've worked with all these people. So before we were able to provide off to class to K-12 districts in the United States, we very much, as I was saying, came from a world of working with other online ESL ventures and entrepreneurs. So all of these people have been clients of Off to Class at one point. Many of them still are. And I've worked hand in hand with the CEOs and co-founders of each of these online ESL schools. So I know what it means to scale an online ESL school. And so I know what that journey looks like. So hopefully I've got some insights on that process. Okay, first we're going to talk about finding product market fit versus scaling and the difference. And if I equate it to Off to Class, like I was saying, we started in 2015. In 2015, we launched, let's call a very simple tool with about 300 lessons. And we, at that point, primarily monetized by selling Off to Class to online ESL teachers. It took us 3 to 4 years to find true product market fit. And when I mean true product market fit, I mean having a clear understanding of who your target customer is, knowing where to go find them and how much it costs to go find them, and knowing how to retain them. And until you figure out 1, 2, and 3, you are in the process of finding product market fit. You have not yet figured out the exact way your product solves problems for a specific type of customer, where to go find those customers, and how to retain them. And if you're in the process of finding product market fit, my suggestion would be to bootstrap. So I just went over a bunch of things there. So let's figure out kind of what I just said. So, and relate it to your ventures. So if you are in the process of launching an online ESL school or thinking about launching an online ESL school, a lot of teachers or first-time kind of entrepreneurs, edupreneurs, might already be thinking about a lot of things that are really the purview of when you're scaling. So they might be thinking about integrating the perfect system of booking to payments, to subscriptions, to things like that. And my argument here today is that if you're still in product market fit mode, if you're still trying to figure out 1, 2, and 3 on this slide, then actually what you should be doing is bootstrapping. And bootstrapping is a startup term for launching and running your software business without raising capital. And people that bootstrap, so founders that bootstrap, so for example, for Off to Class, founders that bootstrap, what they become experts in is taking free or inexpensive tools that already exist on the market and slapping them together to create a product that's good enough. The reason they're doing that is because they know that that will enable them for low investment to figure out their product market fit. While you're in the process of figuring out 1, 2, and 3, you want to bootstrap so that you can save funds and save your money for once you figured out 1, 2, and 3. And the way you save your money for 1, 2, and 3 is by using low cost and or inexpensive tools to have a viable product that's going to allow you to figure out 1, 2, and 3. So why do we bootstrap first? This is the classic startup hockey stick graph. So if you ever see someone pitching to investors in a cafe or a Starbucks or something like that, you might pass by the laptop or the iPad and see a graph that looks like this. So usually the person pitching is in this part. They're not really driving a lot of revenue at the start, and they're going out to investors and saying, but don't worry, soon our revenue is going to go like this. So it's called the hockey stick because this is the start. This is where I am now, and I'm selling you on this happening now. But for everybody that doesn't want to go out and pitch the hockey stick graph to a bunch of investors, my suggestion would actually be, while you're in this part, while you're figuring out your product market fit, don't spend a lot of money. Actually self-fund it off your savings or off whatever revenue you can generate off your initial customers, because you in this part, you're in a bit of a dogfight with your customers, your market, your customer acquisition costs. You're trying to figure all that stuff out. So while you're in this kind of figuring out phase, it is a terrible time to raise investment because you want all of that sorted out by the time you go to finance your operations so that you can get this part, so that you can kind of make things happen. One of the other things I mentioned on this previous slide is where we went over the 3 things we're really trying to figure out in product market fit. These are 2 more startup terms. So CAC stands for customer acquisition cost. That's just an expensive way. A fancy startup way of saying, how much does it cost for me to acquire a customer? So if your customers are on Facebook and in your product market fit session analysis, you've realized that you can reach customers on Facebook and it costs you this much in ad spend to attract one of your customers. That ad spend would be your customer acquisition cost. Here, where it says LTV, that just means lifetime value. That means over the average life of a customer, how much money do they bring you? How much are they worth? And you can imagine these 2 numbers being very interrelated, and you kind of want to know both before you really start scaling your business. So without getting into too much detail, this is before you go and scale your business, you want to have an understanding here of how long does it take you to pay back your customer acquisition costs. So using that example from before, if I've figured out that my ideal customer is an adult learner who's going back to school in an English-speaking country and needs to take the TOEFL test, if I figured out that that is my profile and that they're living in country X, Y, and Z, and that is my customer, then I'm going to want to understand how much it costs for me to attract one of those customers, let's say on Facebook ads. Then I'm going to want to understand through my pricing model and my subscription model, how long it takes for me to get that value back and make money before they churn, before they on average depart the organization. So this is what you're trying to calculate before you scale. Once you know this, this means that you've figured out product market fit and you are ready to scale. And you could imagine why before you figure this out, it is not time to spend $10,000 on a website. It's not time to integrate a booking system with a subscription system. It's not time to hire a copywriter for your website. It's not time to do all these fun things that cost a lot of money, because until you figure out this model, you don't even know what the website should say. You don't even know how much money you can afford to spend on your Rolls-Royce booking system, which will crash your model. You don't really know anything. So as you know, as teachers and educators, there is a propensity to want to work on all the fun things, all the shiny things, all the branding, the lesson plans, the this, that, and that, and just to do everything to avoid the very important and much more important and hard work of figuring out your CAC and your LTV. So if you take anything today away from today's presentation, is I would say when you're thinking about getting into this space before scaling, focus 100% on product market fit first. Really these 3 items, and focus 100% on the concept of bootstrapping. Use available tools to figure out number 1, 2, and 3 at a reasonable cost. So today, I want to just talk about how you actually bootstrap your online ESL school. How can you start an online ESL school using relatively free and inexpensive tools that are available to you? You only need 4 things to launch an ESL school, an online ESL school. You need video conferencing, you need payments, you need scheduling, and you need education infrastructure. So it's actually really easy. And one thing I'll re-mention the idea of bootstrapping is that it's not going to be an integrated perfect solution where the website is hooked up to like an embedded integrated video conferencing system that then links to your subscription system, that automatically schedules everybody, and that produces the right lesson plans at the right time for the right teacher. It's not going to be like that. Your solution is not going to be like that. If you build a solution that is like that, you will have a solution like one of these people, my clients here at Off to Class, who have definitely figured out product market fit, have gone to investors and raised money on product market fit. And I can assure you, these people did not have that Rolls-Royce system when they were trying to figure out their product market fit. They approached it the way I'm talking about approaching it, to slap it together, for lack of better words, until they figured out their means to scale. So yes, you are doing this correctly if things don't talk to each other, if things don't scale, if things are a little bit slapped together. That's how you know you have the right product for the stage of kind of bootstrapping and figuring out product market fit. So the first thing I'll just talk about here is synchronous versus asynchronous. I think the crowd here is very teacher focused. But basically all that means is Are we talking about a school that focuses on synchronous, like live online ESL lessons through video conferencing, where the teacher is there at the same time as the students, giving lessons? Or are we talking about asynchronous, where the student just logs in and completes stuff? I would argue that we're largely talking about synchronous or synchronous combined with asynchronous. If you want to develop a school that focuses on asynchronous teaching, you are competing with folks like Duolingo, and the huge world of English learning apps that are asynchronous. So I would not suggest going there. I would suggest what you want to do is you want to sell the idea of teachers and amazing teachers doing amazing work to a specific customer type that needs a certain type of teacher backed by great education infrastructure. I would not suggest going with the asynchronous route. I would consider pairing asynchronous with synchronous, but not going 100% asynchronous. So I'll just add a couple comments here on each of the very easy to find items that you can use to bootstrap your online ESL school. Video conferencing. There's really not much to say here. New video conference systems come out every week. It's a completely commoditized section of the ecosystem of the value chain. Commoditized is good because it means that you have a bunch of competition driving the cost down to the point where there's great free options that you can pick that will be good enough to bootstrap. Payments. By all means, go with something simple. PayPal is good enough to start. The other nice thing about PayPal is in countries, depending on where your ideal customers are or your target customers are, in many countries that where making payments online is not yet fully trusted or mainstream, PayPal is the de facto system that people use before they have credit cards or debit cards that they can use online. So again, you might end up integrating Stripe with your scheduling and subscription systems and all that when you're ready to scale, but most likely at the start, PayPal is good enough. Scheduling, what I would say is just similar to the other sections. Calendly and all the competitors to Calendly allow you and your teachers to set up a booking link where you can set your availability and it links to your Google Calendar, so you can block out time. And for example, if you sold a package using PayPal to a student of 10 class credits, they could then go and book up to 10 classes in Calendly. And the obvious question that some of you guys are asking is like, well, in that example, when I go and sell a 10 class package of lessons to a student and then tell them to go book in Calendly with their teacher, how do we know like when the student is taking up their 10 classes? The answer is just figure out a simple non-scalable solution of like a Google Sheet and monitoring how many classes each student has taken and sending them an invoice on PayPal. Again, going back to the conversation at the start, that this world, this bootstrapping, this finding product market fit, like it should be a system that is hacked together and is non-scalable. If it works too well, you can rest assured that you are making the mistake of turning on the taps here while you're still trying to figure out your secret sauce here. And then education infrastructure. You need to have content that that speaks to your learner type, and it needs to be good. You can't just show up and talk. that model doesn't work anymore. There was a different stage of the ecosystem of the market when you could sort of just show up and talk, but there's way too many competitors in the space. So you really do need to sell a product. A product, when it comes to an online ESL school, is it does involve like actual content to power the online ESL kind of environment, the video conference classrooms. I would say a great free source of content would be just go to offtheclass.com. We give 150 lessons for free on our website. It's probably good enough to bootstrap your system, and just use that, or find other free sources like I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people sponsoring this conference on the board that Philip was showing at the start have free tiered accounts. So you should just go check out all of those and figure out which one works for you and your ideal customer. Okay, so you've been bootstrapping. You slapped together the ugliest online ESL school that anybody's ever seen, but it allowed you to figure out who is your target customer, the exact target customer you're going after, so the exact student type you're going after, where to find them and how much it costs to bring on a customer, and then how much money they give you as a learner before they on average leave your services and churn. You now have those three things. So now you're ready to scale. And just a little background. It took Off to Class 4 or 5 years to figure out those three things. So the bootstrapping part is not necessarily this part is not necessarily going to be like a couple months. It's different for every business. But yeah, for us, from my perspective, it took us 4 or 5 years to figure out those three things. So it might take a while, and that further highlights the point of not raising money in this part of the graph at the start. So now you're ready to scale. What does that actually mean? It means you know your CAC, you know your LTV. And now it becomes as simple as pouring fuel on the fire. And now you are ready to go raise financing and have a compelling and credible product that you can really grow. And you are ready to join up on with all my colleagues on this board and be the next big online ESL school for a specific type of learner or in a specific type of geography that can credibly raise financing to kind of go after that learner type in a very kind of specific and targeted way. So if you go to the Off to Class YouTube channel, there is a series. I'm just going to leave present mode. There is a series of videos that I did at the start of the pandemic that go in much more detail onto those kind of key items for bootstrapping. I'll just show everybody because it could be a good resource. Yeah, the playlist is called Get Your ESL School Online, and you'll see that I go over the first video kind of goes over like what a bootstrapping mentality means, then the synchronous versus asynchronous. Then I go into much more detail around video conferencing options, payments, scheduling, and education infrastructure. So this could be a great resource for anybody that is looking for a kind of recap. And I will put it in the chat here. And that is it. I am happy to answer any questions. I believe Philip is probably going to moderate them on the chat, and we can go from there.
Thanks, Kris. I just have a comment from Ian. Ian, right? Great key points, Kris. Here's another tough concept for most people to get comfortable with. MVP, minimally viable product. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough for now.
Yeah, absolutely. Echo Ian's comments that, the product I'm talking about having out there to figure out your product market fit would definitely count as like an MVP. Like it's good enough. And if I really think about off to class, when we launched in 2015, like that was definitely a minimum viable product. I think there was 300, maybe 300 lessons. And they're all single skill lessons on common grammar points. I think, yeah, the system allowed you to send homework, but not much else. And it was minimum. And the reason we wanted to monetize early with an MVP was just to figure out whether people would pay for this, which is important, right? When you're starting a new business, when you're kind of attacking the digital publishing space at the time in 2015, which it was very much controlled by only a couple key players. It was very important to myself and my co-founders to get something out to see whether people would pay for it. And that's also something the MVP allows you to do. Start taking in money and then fund your future growth.
So please, I encourage you to ask questions. Please raise your hand and we'll let you in. Just want to ask you one question, Kris, quite topical, about China and the whole online situation, online teaching situation. What's your read on what's happening?
My read is that there's a great opportunity for independent ESL teachers that used to work for the VIP kids of the world to take their students online and independent. And if you haven't, you should.
Okay, excellent. So there are opportunities out there. So you mentioned a crowded marketplace. How can one differentiate oneself from your competitors?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I think the two Philip's two questions are definitely related. So if you think about the opportunity, so China has basically, from what I understand, I don't actually have a lot of experience in China, but from what I understand, China has effectively stopped the practice of supplemental tutoring, not just in the language learning space, but kind of across the board, because the Communist Party of China deemed that it was unfair that so much attention was being put towards private tuition. And so in our world of English as a second language, that ended up putting an end to the VIP kids of the world and Data ABC and all those folks. So now you have a lot of students in China that were receiving tuition through a service that still love their teachers, but aren't able to access them through the normal way, through the platform that they used to be. And what I would kind of expand on my earlier kind of relatively simple comments to Philip is that the students love good teachers. And although platforms are great, at the end of the day, the platform is just a means to access a really good teacher. And if your students love you because you're a really good teacher, regardless of where you that relationship started, and now they're not able to access you, it's your duty as an educator to continue to provide those services to those students. So just keep that in mind. And for teachers that are looking for an impetus or a kind of trigger to go in on their own, to get into that bootstrap world of finding product market fit, it is absolutely a huge opportunity, echoing Philip's words, that you have this kind of like environment right now where you might have a lot of students that need you independently as a teacher. So that's a great kind of way to expand on that point. On the second point here of target customer. So when I say the number one thing you're trying to do when you're finding product market fit is you have proven out who your target customer is. It is very, very, very important important to realize that as a small solopreneur, or maybe you've got a couple, business partners, but either way, if you're following my advice, you're bootstrapping, you haven't raised investor capital, you're doing this from the heart, you're doing this from, because you love what you're doing and you're a passionate edupreneur. If that is the case, which I hope it is, that means you need to be super, super targeted at who your customer is. You cannot compete with my colleagues here because you have not raised capital. So the only way you can compete with these folks is by going after a super, super targeted view of the market. And when I mean super targeted view of the market, the more targeted and the specific, the better, because then you will become the master at solving the English language needs of that specific segment, and you will avoid the trap of being of trying to compete with people that have a much broader sense of the market. So it is absolutely imperative that you try to become as specific as possible as who your target customer is. And guess what? On number 2, when you're trying to figure out how to acquire them, number 2 is going to be infinitely easier if this number 1 is very niched and specific. So a good example of number 1 to me would be, I think I use it today, like mid-career professionals in Mexico that are going to do an MBA in the United States and need a certain TOEFL score. That would be good to me. That's a good number 1. Mexican students that want to go for higher education in an English-speaking country would not be as strong of a number 1 there, because to me, the latter is very much already covered by the market, but the former is something where you could put a product together for that very specific niche, and it could easily be better than what's currently being served in the market for that specific niche.
Okay, and just a reminder, on tomorrow, we're having a workshop with Nicola Lutz. Sorry, that's on Thursday. Excuse me. And she's going to talk about customer student avatar. So don't miss that one about getting your perfect student. So I think, Kris, what you're saying is about niching down. I think I was talking to Paul Salloway on the EFL Magazine Business podcast, and he mentioned that one of his friends, acquaintances, was an English teacher for tree surgeons. That was her niche, and she's making a good living from that. So another tip I would have is for someone that has done Facebook ads. So if you ever look at Facebook ads and you're looking to target people on Facebook ads, it's very much what you're saying, isn't it, Kris? It's about the location, the interests, filter by interest, and you're trying to, refine to exactly what you want.
Exactly. And then when these customers come into your funnel, so to speak, when they get access to you, and presumably at some point you're going to have to show them your services, and then they'll decide whether they want to purchase those services. When that funnel occurs of when they get to see you as a teacher, if you have content and an approach and pedagogy that is very specific to their needs and their problems, that is going to be much more successful than a generic, like, oh yeah, like we'll teach you some grammar, some speaking, some listening, build some confidence, just kind of very, very generic offering.
Okay, I just go to some of the comments in the chat. Okay, Della, thank you for your comment. I'm new to all of these startup concepts. I'm trying to take an in-person program online. Okay, so this is, I think a lot of people have had these problems over the past year or so. Do you think these concepts also apply? How might they be adapted for a free program?
So, okay, so let me decompose that for a second. So, first of all, for Della, do you think these concepts also apply for taking an in-person program online? Absolutely, first of all. But the great news is when you already have a number of, I imagine that when for your in-person program, you already have a lot of what we're talking about product market fit. So presumably you're running a bricks and mortar program and you already have, you might not realize this. So yeah, so let's get out of this jargon. Let's get out of startup jargon and let's just talk in really simplistic terms. I imagine your bricks and mortar program already knows who its target customer is. So you know the profile, roughly the age demographic, what problems the students are trying to solve by learning English, what their goals are, what their aspirations are. So you probably already know that for your in-person program. Okay, you might not know CAC, customer acquisition costs, but you also might not be that far from figuring it out because you already know number one, you know the profile of your learners, going out and doing a bit of analysis to figure out what it would cost to acquire more of these customers. That's really all you need for number two. And then you need to test it out to see if it actually works. Can you actually acquire these customers, in any given channel? And if you're running an in-person program, I mean, your channels could be as simple as flyers or, local available marketing. Um, and then to figure out how to retain them online and how long on average you retain them as customers, all that is going to flow from testing it out. So if you take a bunch of your target customers online, like the target customers that are going to your physical program, if you take them online and just measure how long on average and how much money do they give you before they abandon the product. So yes, these principles absolutely do apply to taking a physical school online. And the good news there is that you already have a lot of this stuff worked out. You certainly have number one already worked out, so you can then apply that, and you've already got a huge head start to getting product market fit.
Okay, we have another comment from Matteo. Thank you, Matteo. I appreciate the term niche or niche, whichever one you want to use. And but what Kris is offering is more specific, which is quantifiable profit because you know who needs your unique service. My sense here is that uniqueness on its own is not enough. It has to do with the relationship you had with the market and knowing its sub-segments as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, okay, so first of all, the first people to write about teaching niche, I can say for sure, is Off to Class and Jack Askew. Years ago, before it was really common to talk about teaching niche, we were blogging about it. So you heard it here first. You can check out the Off to Class blog post from like 2015 when we were telling edupreneurs that you have to have a teaching niche. And Matteo is correct. Okay, so having a teaching niche does not fully solve what we're talking about when it comes to product market fit. Yes, you do need a teaching niche because that will solve number one here, that you know who your target customer is. But you actually, to really get product market fit, you need to know for that niche, for that subset of learners, where do you acquire them? How much does it cost? And how long do they stay with your service before they decide to depart? And you will have iterated and tested those processes to drive down the cost of CAC and drive up the value of LTV. And that will then create this graph, which will show you how to pour fuel on in the engine. So yeah, we're not just talking about the general concept that has become really popular of a teaching niche. We're really kind of expanding on it here to give it that business element of how you take all that great thinking of a teaching niche to really kind of like scale it.
Okay, sorry, the chat has disappeared on me there. So Russell Stannard has a video about Facebook ads. Okay, thanks, Lynn. Yeah, Russell's great. Yeah, Wiki Marina, I didn't know what that was. It's good, but that was your child typing. Now, just let's somebody in there. Della, thank you. And Jack Askew was really specific on this as well. So yeah, yeah, we actually 5 years ago did a conference with Jack, and must actually share that again. And I will actually share that older conference. I think 5-6 years ago, we did a 2-day conference. What was it? 10-12 presentations on online teaching. I think it's relevant in some ways. So I'll share that as well with you when I dig it out. Have we got any other questions for Kris? How about specifically using off the class in their online teaching, Kris? What can you tell us about that?
That they should.
No
And
surprise.
no, but the reason they should is because if we go back to the bootstrap items, is off to class provides all the education infrastructure. So like the lesson plans for teaching online, the homework, placement tests, assessments, student management, all that stuff. And the reason it's good to use here is because it qualifies as a free or inexpensive tool. The free accounts, I think, come with 150 lessons. You can add up to 20 students. So it can be a tool that enables you to find product market fit because of that free account, or even some of the lowest tier paid accounts are very low cost. So it allows you to go on this very important journey of bootstrapping your online ESL school. If you turn around to me and say, my plan for this, for education infrastructure, is build a whole library of ESL lesson plans, I will tell you for sure that you are not going to build an online ESL school, because it has taken us 7 years to build the lesson plans that make off to class. So instead of building a bunch of lesson plans, you should just use our work for free and focus on what's important, which is this.
Good. Now, okay. Thanks, Stella, again. How do we help students who are not comfortable with online learning and become more adapted to it?
That is, I'd love you to tell me. In your quest for product market fit, you're going to work all that out, and you're going to figure out the magic formula to get your target customers online, to get them comfortable, and to make them happy paying customers that you can retain for a long time. So I would say that is what you're going to embark on in your search for product market fit.
Okay, and Della goes on to say that basically in my free program, we have lost students who are not comfortable in the online classroom setting. So does anyone else have any advice to give on making students more comfortable in an online setting?
Well, I might just say
any other
that,
questions?
yeah, I mean, I didn't realize originally Della's original question of that her bricks and mortar program was free. So yeah, in that sense, that, you know, the I have a lot of experience in the not-for-profit world as well, and community-driven products and projects, but that's kind of a whole other presentation, because product market fit becomes a completely different conversation when we're talking about a free service. Some of the principles still apply, but it's very, very different to what we're talking about here. Perhaps in your quest to find product market fit for a paid service, that will alleviate a lot of the problems you're talking about of uncomfortableness getting online, because the mindset of the learner is very, very, very different when they're paying for a service versus when it's being provided for free. And a lot of the obstacles that the learner might face, they're able to get over when they're paying for a service. But perhaps next year I will do a presentation specifically on not-for-profit world and the kind of community-driven projects of world, because that is a very, very important topic. It sounds like Della is doing very important work, and that is almost a completely different kind of set of factors there of getting that stickiness of learners.
And if you want to learn more about engagement and retention, the recording of Susanna Smith's presentation this morning will be available probably next week. And I know it was probably a little bit too early for some of you, but don't miss that one. All the registered attendees will get links to the recordings. And okay. Any other comments there for Kris? This is a great opportunity. By all means, you can join by voice as well. You don't necessarily have to just send it in chat, please. Okay, good. Okay, Elizabeth. Yes, I'll just unmute yourself there. Sorry, Elizabeth, we can't hear you. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, sorry, I keep muting you, and you keep unmuting. Oh, anyway, we're doing that, so please do it yourself.
Okay, yeah, I have a question again about materials. I've worked as a teacher trainer for Oxford Publishing Company, so I have a close relationship, not a close relationship, but I've worked with a lot of book publishers through the schools that I've worked for. Where are they in all of this? Because the students, where do they get them? What you're offering, which is great. I didn't realize that would be the material, because if you go with these traditional publishers like Pierce and Longman and Oxford and Cambridge, they're still just selling physical books. And if you're working online, that doesn't work. Plus their materials are very expensive. And in Latin America, where I'm in, for example, the students just don't have the money to spend $50 for a physical book. Do you know if they will be getting into this market, or will we just forget about them?
That's a great question. I'll show you, just because we only have a little bit of time left, I'll show you why a lot of online teachers use Off to Class. It's because we were never a physical book, because we were never a traditional publisher. You can kind of see like the content actually has the space and form and like function of being like rich and kind of designed for a teacher guided online lesson using the communicative approach. Of course, this is the teacher's view. So I have like the actual content that the student and the teacher is supposed to see next to the teacher notes. On the student side, they don't see the teacher notes. But this is really what people fall in love with on Off to Class. And obviously this is very, very different from a Oxford or Pearson textbook. It's two very different things. It's not really the same idea or the same product. And it reflects a really different way of kind of teaching.
Do you have audio? Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
Do you have audio and everything that goes along with it?
Everything.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. So yeah, go check out Off to Class and use the free account, because you should be bootstrapping.
Okay.